The air in the crowded sports bar was loud and sticky, smelling of stale beer and cheap cologne. I stood holding a small, brightly wrapped box, my heart pounding with nervous excitement. This was my 23rd birthday, and Marcus was about to give a toast. He grabbed the microphone, his smile wide and arrogant, looking like the football star he was. He was surrounded by his rich friends, all laughing too loudly. I watched him, ready for the praise he usually gave, but his eyes were cold when they finally landed on me. He cleared his throat. "All right, everyone, let's talk about my future." He paused for dramatic effect, letting the silence hang heavy. Then he looked right at me, a cruel, dismissive smirk on his perfect face. "I'm cutting bait. I need a woman who can actually keep up with my future. Let's be honest, Eliza is just too boring, too quiet, and frankly, she's not the look I need. She's ugly." The word hit me like a physical punch, echoing through the stunned bar. His friends erupted in mean-spirited laughter. My cheeks burned with deep, humiliating shame, and the small box in my hands felt like a bomb. The floor swayed. The injustice was deep and instant. What the hell just happened to her? My first instinctual reaction was to look down, to hide my face from the sudden, critical stares of Marcus's friends. Tears stung the back of my eyes, but a sudden, ice-cold clarity stopped them. I am Eliza Vance, a 23-year-old computer science major. For 2 years, I had poured my entire self, my time, my savings, and my intelligence into Marcus and his dream. I was deeply in debt, having paid for his tuition and the initial costs of his sports app. His cruel words, "she's ugly," were designed to destroy my confidence and make the breakup entirely my fault. The public humiliation cut deeper than any private fight. I lifted my chin, forcing my eyes to stay dry. The title of my broken relationship flashed. My boyfriend called me ugly in front of his friends and dumped me. 3 months later, he came back begging. I slowly placed the small gift, the rare collector's edition jersey he wanted, on the table, pushing it toward his friends, and walked away. I didn't run. I walked slowly, feeling the shock turning into a hard, dangerous resolve. The victim was gone. The strategist was born. The true depth of the betrayal was more than just the cruelty. It was the theft. Marcus, the handsome football star, was only smart enough to talk big. I was the brain behind his revolutionary sports prediction app, Victory Track. I spent 6 months developing the complex algorithms and the core predictive logic. But since I was his supportive girlfriend, he insisted the IP, intellectual property, be registered solely in his name for investor confidence, promising to add me later. I was naive and desperately in love. The high emotional stakes were my entire future. I had borrowed heavily, using my small college fund to cover his costs and keep his app development going while he focused on football and parties. Now I was broke, alone, and he had stolen my life's work. His father, Mr. Sterling, the wealthy owner of Sterling Data Corporation, only encouraged Marcus's narcissism, constantly telling me, "Eliza, a girl like you should be happy to support a genius like my son." The only way out of this financial and emotional trap was to prove I was the genius he discarded. Driving away from the bar, the anger was cold and specific. I knew I couldn't fight him publicly yet. He had the money and the name. My revenge had to be subtle and destructive. I pulled over and accessed my private, encrypted cloud storage. Months ago, during one of our late-night coding sessions, I had done 2 things only a paranoid programmer would do. First, I backed up the complete, original source code of Victory Track, proving my ownership of the IP. Second, and most critical, I inserted a complex, time-delayed logic bomb, a bug, deep within the core prediction algorithms. It was designed to run smoothly during testing, but to trigger a catastrophic, public system crash under specific high-load conditions, such as a major televised event. I had prepared for his arrogance, knowing he would rush the launch. Now my pain was my power. I would let him build his empire on stolen goods, only to watch it explode live in front of the world. The transformation began the next day. I cleaned out all traces of Marcus from my tiny apartment. I started channeling the white-hot shame from his words, "She's ugly," into my work. I wasn't just going to fix my life. I was going to obliterate his. My first strategic move was financial independence. I took on 3 grueling freelance coding jobs, working 16 hours a day, paying down the debt I took on for him. My second move was professional power. I decided to enter the upcoming National University Tech Innovation Competition, a prestigious event with a massive cash prize and, more importantly, high-profile media coverage and job offers. Winning would secure my future and give me the platform I needed. I stopped checking Marcus's social media. I stopped answering my phone. I became invisible to him, focusing entirely on coding the complex rival app for the competition, an app based on the real, clean algorithms he had stolen. The silence was the perfect weapon. Marcus, a narcissist, expected tears, pleading, or a dramatic confrontation. My complete disappearance confused him. My emotional state stabilized into a quiet, dangerous resolve. I pored over the stolen victory track source code one more time, checking the integrity of my logic bomb. I saw he was preparing for a beta launch. I knew he would never look for a hidden bug. His arrogance made him believe the code was perfect, a direct reflection of his genius. The twist. I realized that my most valuable asset wasn't just the code, but the flaw. If I could publicly demonstrate the flaw and then immediately present the working solution, my competition app, my value would skyrocket. The strategic move. I started attending high-level tech meetups, places Marcus never went, making professional connections with venture capitalists and journalists who were looking for the next big tech story. I was building my network far outside his football bubble. The emotional roller coaster spiked when I ran into Marcus's best friend, Dylan, at the college library. Dylan, looking awkward, approached me. "Eliza, man, I'm sorry about Marcus. That was rough." I kept my face blank. "It's fine, Dylan. I'm busy." He sighed. "He's all consumed with Victory Track. His dad is putting a ton of pressure on him to launch it for the big season opener next month. They're trying to land a huge sponsorship deal with a national sports broadcaster." This was the crucial information I needed. The season opener would be a nationally televised, high-load event, the perfect condition to trigger my catastrophic bug. The stakes were suddenly magnified. Marcus wasn't just launching an app. He was launching it onto a massive, global stage, guaranteeing maximum humiliation when it failed. I thanked Dylan calmly, giving him a small, polite smile that hid the predatory gleam in my eyes. The public conflict escalated when Marcus's father, Mr. Sterling, made a move. Mr. Sterling, a controlling man, was paying Marcus's tuition and living expenses, making him entirely dependent. Mr. Sterling called me, not to apologize, but to demand. "Eliza, Marcus told me you helped him with the math for Victory Track. Now that you're out of the picture, I need you to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a release of all IP rights. I can pay you a small consulting fee for your time." He was trying to cement the theft and pay me off like an unimportant contractor. The disrespect was immense. I politely refused. "Mr. Sterling, I cannot sign anything without seeing the full accounting of my past funding contributions to the app. I have documented proof of my investment." I didn't mention the code or the bug. I simply appealed to his business sense. His stunned silence was delicious. He hung up abruptly, realizing I was not the quiet, easily discarded girl his son claimed I was. The strategic revenge gained momentum. I realized Marcus would panic about the IP if he couldn't get me to sign the release. He would inevitably try to find my ugly self, trying to charm or bully me into submission. I needed to be completely unavailable. I moved my focus to the national competition, pouring all my time into perfecting my new app, Zenith, which was a flawless, ethical version of Victory Track. I started taking professional photos, not to look pretty, but to look like a polished, powerful competitor, the look Marcus craved but would never possess. The the small internal details. I stopped wearing the baggy sweaters Marcus always suggested, opting for sharp, tailored clothing that made me feel strong and competent. I was physically transforming to match the genius he had stolen. The tension built dramatically when Marcus finally located me at a campus cafe. He walked over, his face a mix of false concern and entitlement. "Eliza, why have you been avoiding me? Look, I'm sorry about the breakup, but it was just getting too serious. We need to be adults about the app. My dad is worried. Just sign the IP release, and I'll pay off your college loan." He was dangling the bait, thinking debt was my only weakness. I looked up at him, my expression serene. "I'm not worried about my college loan, Marcus. I just won the regional preliminary for the national tech competition. The prize money covers my tuition." His jaw dropped. "Competition? What are you talking about? You don't have time for that." He couldn't grasp the idea of me succeeding without him. The perfect power shift. I casually slid a copy of my IP documentation across the table. "You stole the logic, Marcus. I have the proof. I suggest you focus on whether your stolen app can handle the season opener without crashing." The power dynamic flipped completely. Marcus, now terrified that I held evidence of the theft, switched from arrogance to pleading. He called me repeatedly, alternating between apologies and threats. He tried to gaslight me, saying, "You know I meant basic, not ugly, Eliza. It's just my sense of humor. We belong together." I never answered the calls. I focused entirely on the upcoming national competition finals, which were scheduled 2 days before the Victory Track season opener launch. I knew if I won the competition, the media buzz would be huge, giving me the perfect platform for the final, devastating move. I used my growing network to ensure the competition final was widely covered by the same sports and tech press that Marcus was courting. The stage was being carefully set for the final act of poetic justice. I won the National University Tech Innovation Competition. The victory was cathartic. My app, Zenith, was hailed as the future of sports analytics. I gave interviews, speaking clearly and confidently about the ethical use of data and the importance of intellectual property. The prize money was significant, but the real reward was the attention. My face was on every local news tech blog. Meanwhile, Marcus was still scrambling, unable to find the core flaw in Victory Track because the hidden bug was designed to only appear under massive, real-world load. The tension intensified as the day of the season opener and the app launch arrived. Marcus secured a huge live launch segment during the televised pregame show, sponsored by his father's company, Sterling Data Corporation. The stage for his humiliation was built by his own arrogance. The morning of the launch, I was invited as a guest expert to a major sports news studio, the one covering the pregame show. I was there to talk about Zenith, but I knew my true purpose. I dressed in a stunning, custom-tailored white suit, the antithesis of the boring girl he dumped. I watched the clock tick down. Marcus and Mr. Sterling were on the set, Marcus beaming with false confidence, ready to launch Victory Track to millions of viewers. I watched on the studio monitor as the camera zoomed in on Marcus's face. He looked directly into the lens and delivered his practiced, narcissistic pitch about being a self-made genius. The final, cruel setup. Marcus mentioned my name, giving a fake, sad smile. And a huge thank you to my former assistant, Eliza. She helped with some of the early typing. The time arrived. Marcus pressed the large, symbolic red button to officially launch Victory Track and display the live prediction on a massive screen behind him. Millions of people, including Mr. Sterling, watched. The predictions flashed for exactly 3 seconds, and then the screen behind Marcus went entirely blue, flashing a repeating, garbled error message. Logic bomb detected, unauthorized IP. The catastrophic, public failure was instant and total. Marcus froze, his arrogant smile disappearing, replaced by sheer panic. Mr. Sterling, standing beside him, turned a deep shade of crimson. The live feed cut back to the main hosts, who were scrambling to fill the dead air. In the chaos, I heard the studio director in my earpiece. We need someone to explain what just happened. Get the tech expert ready. This was my moment. The camera lights swung toward me. I calmly sat in the expert chair. A microphone clipped to my collar. The anchor, flustered, asked, "Ms. Vance, what was that catastrophic failure we just saw?" I leaned into the microphone, my voice clear, steady, and professional. "That was not a technical failure, but a predictable IP failure," I stated. "The victory track algorithm contained a hidden logic flaw, a time-delayed bug I inserted months ago. I am the actual developer of the core prediction logic. Marcus stole the code from me, and since he didn't understand the underlying principles, he couldn't find or disarm the flaw." The shocking reveal was delivered with clinical precision, exposing the theft on live, national television. The anchor's mouth dropped open in shock. The payoff was complete. The phone in my hand, which was monitoring the social media reaction, was exploding. People weren't just angry. They were celebrating the exposed fraud. I continued, presenting the final evidence. The error message, "Logic bomb detected, unauthorized IP," was placed there by me. This was my intellectual property. The app's catastrophic failure proved his claims of genius were a lie. The camera cut back to the sports bar where Marcus and his friends had celebrated his cruelty. Now they were seeing their hero destroyed by the woman he called ugly. I felt a deep, purifying sense of vindication. Marcus and Mr. Sterling were currently locked in a furious, private argument backstage, their public reputation shattered. The subsequent roller coaster was watching Mr. Sterling's control shatter. Mr. Sterling, who lived and died by his corporate reputation, called my personal number, the number he once used to demand I sign an IP release. His voice was no longer arrogant. It was desperate and frantic. "Eliza, you have to stop this. You've ruined my name. How much? How much to buy your silence and your code?" He tried to throw money at the problem, treating my genius like a negotiable fee. I refused. "Mr. Sterling, you are calling the winner of the National Tech Innovation Competition. I don't need your money. I need justice." I told him I would not stop until Marcus publicly confessed to the theft and the corporate world was fully aware of his fraud. I hung up, the ultimate power play complete. The pressure on Marcus was immense. He was facing professional ruin, legal action from the national sports broadcaster for the failed launch, and the fury of his controlling father. The twist, Marcus, desperate and narcissistic, came back begging. 3 days after the crash, he showed up at my small apartment door, tearful and disheveled. He didn't look like the perfect football star anymore. He looked small and pathetic. He sank to his knees. "Amelia, please. I'm begging you. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was stressed. I never meant what I said. You're not ugly, you're brilliant. We can fix this. Give me the code, and we'll be partners, just like you always wanted." The confrontation was the climax of the personal pain. I looked down at the man who had publicly shamed me, the man who had stolen my work, now groveling for the IP that would save him. He was trying to gaslight me one last time, appealing to the pity he knew I once possessed. I stepped back, my eyes cold. "You didn't call me ugly because you were stressed, Marcus. You called me ugly because you were threatened. You needed to diminish me because you knew I was smarter than you." I brought out the IP documentation, the notarized proof of my original code. "I'm not fixing this with you. I'm fixing this for myself." The silence stretched, thick with his defeat. I delivered the final, devastating blow. I explained exactly how I built the logic bomb, how I watched him fail, and how I secured the final, clean code. I emphasized that I had not only beaten him in the competition, but had also caused the most public, career-ending failure possible. "The world knows you are a fraud, Marcus, and your father knows you are a liability. I didn't need to win you back. I needed to permanently take away the foundation of your arrogance." I then called Mr. Sterling, putting him on speakerphone. Your son has confessed to the intellectual property theft, Mr. Sterling. The full documentation is now with the University Legal Board and the National Tech Media. Marcus's face went from pale to ghostly white as his father's furious, defeated voice came through the speaker. The downfall was total. Mr. Sterling, concerned about his company's reputation and facing legal pressure from the sports broadcaster, cut Marcus off entirely. He announced publicly that Sterling Data Corporation had no affiliation with Victory Track and that Marcus's claims of genius were false. Marcus lost his financial support, his college tuition, and his social standing. His shallow friends disappeared immediately. I, meanwhile, was receiving job offers and partnership proposals from major tech firms. I officially registered the IP for Zenith under my name. The poetic justice, Marcus, the handsome, narcissistic star, was now broke, disgraced, and unemployed, while the ugly, boring girl he dumped was suddenly the most sought-after tech genius in the country. The final twist involved Zoe, the woman Marcus was last seen with at the sports bar. She wasn't just his new girlfriend. She was another person he tried to scam. I received an unexpected phone call from her. She was terrified. Eliza, Marcus tricked me. He said you were a bitter ex, and he stole $5,000 from me for his tuition after the launch failed. She was another victim of his financial and emotional manipulation. I calmly advised her to take her evidence to the police and the university, refusing to get emotionally involved. This confirmed that Marcus was not only a thief, but a chronic manipulator. My decision to fight him strategically, rather than emotionally, had saved me from a far worse fate. I looked out of the window of my new, high-rise apartment, bought with my initial investment and competition winnings. My revenge was complete. Marcus was ruined, his father was ashamed, and I was thriving. I saw Marcus once more, 3 months after the public crash. He was working as a waiter in a low-end cafe near the university, his former football star physique now slumped and defeated. He saw me, recognized the confident, successful woman I had become, and looked away quickly. He was begging, not for me, but for his old life back, a life I had destroyed with my intelligence. I didn't pity him. I simply felt the quiet, profound satisfaction of knowing my worth was never defined by his cruel words, but by the brilliant code only I could write. I had won the game and walked away, thriving in my new, self-made future. If you've made it this far, you understand. Respect is non-negotiable. My worth was not defined by Marcus's cruel words or the laughter of his shallow friends. My story proves that silence can be a weapon, and patience, the patience to plant a complex logic bomb, can be the ultimate power. If this resonated with you, if you've been gaslit and told you aren't the look or the genius, tell yourself this: your silence doesn't make you weak. Your boundaries don't make you difficult. Your survival makes you extraordinary. Never let arrogance steal your brilliance. The revolution happens when you decide to write your own ending. He thought I was ugly and boring. I became the tech genius who publicly destroyed his career. Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.